Oh, could you hear me typing that whole time? Oh dear. All right, let me pop over here and let you folks see me. My apologies. I think that my keyboard or my mic was not muted during that time. My apologies. You guys heard a little bit of background behind the scenes magic happening. But it is so good to see you folks bright and early on this Tuesday morning. My name is VooDoo Val, and I am going to be your host yet again for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. And today is pretty darn special. Today is going to be pretty fabulous. We are going to be diving into Liquify, the Liquify filter, and a lot of textures and things. And I've created a project that I think you folks will really enjoy because it's something that you can do today to have a really nice graphic design piece for your portfolio, to post on social media. And I think it's really unique for as simple as the tools we're going to be using are. So if you would like to follow along with me, please check the description down below. You will see a link to your starter file so that you can join me today. And you can also join the Discord. I'm going to be diving into the Discord today to give some more feedback to all of you folks who've been participating and posting your work. Please share with me what you create. I always love seeing what kind of projects you folks do. And the entries for this challenge, this round of challenges, have been pretty inspiring. So always love to see it. But without further ado, let's kind of dive into what we've got planned for today. So let me pull up the Photoshops. Let me make sure that everybody can see. Let me make sure everyone can see me properly. Pop over here. So when you jump into the challenges, the challenge starter file, this is what you will see. Liquify textures and shapes, add drama and movement to graphic design poster with Liquify gradient maps and weathered textures. So we are going to be using a texture today from the free section of Adobe stock. If you go to stock.adobe.com, you will be able to set the search settings to free and find a bunch of free images. And this is the image that we're going to be using here. It's like a white grunge, black and white grunge sketch, dust and grains. And the stock image, I will post the number for you folks when we are finished here, or as we get into it, so you guys can use the exact same image that I'm using. But the first thing we're going to do is set up our file for work. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my info here because we're not going to use that. I am going to create a new background. We are going to use this background texture today, which I've created for you, but I'm going to go ahead and go Control-Shift-In or Command-Shift-In if you're using a Mac, just to make myself a new layer right quick. And I'm going to paint bucket in a new color. So I'll grab my paint bucket tool, which you can access by pressing G on your keyboard. If you don't see it when you press G, if you're on the gradient tool, for example, you can always right click and make sure that you are on the paint bucket tool. And I'm going to sample this like bright green and maybe select kind of an even lighter green like that. And I'm just going to throw that in there like so. Now you can use this this text that I have here, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and hide that just because I'd like to create my own text in here for use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type out a word, and I'm going to use the word Adobe. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to make sure that you folks can see this better by selecting, honestly, if I hide this, I can paint bucket. Let's go ahead and highlight this again. And I'm gonna just grab this dark blue color like so. And that's going to be our text for this. And I'm going to drag this out like this, and then we will come back and add our plain background. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Liquify filter to make this word kind of bleed off the edge of the page. All right. So this is how I'm going to do it. I am going to duplicate my text layer here and go ahead and hide that just so we have a text layer saved, because we're going to alter this pretty heavily here. I'm going to convert this to a smart object. So now I have my Adobe copy converted to smart object. We'll go ahead and center that just so that it is right in the middle there. And I am going to grab my rectangular marquee tool, which you can access by pressing M, or right click it up here in the toolbar, and make sure you have rectangular marquee selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and select each individual letter here like so. And I am going to Control or Command J to duplicate, which is going to give us just an individual letter. And I will continue to select our copy here and duplicate our letters so they are on individual layers here. So I'll just go through and do this right quick. Basically what I'm doing is I'm isolating a copy of each of our letters on its own layer so that we can alter them separately. I'd like to edit them and make them all wiggly, all in their own. And so once you've done that, what you will have is you will just have, let me go ahead and hide this, you will have all of these on their own individual letters, or on their individual layers like so. And what we will do is we will take our Liquify filter and we are going to alter all of these and, like I said, make them bleed off the page. So I'll right click them individually and transform them to smart objects. The reason why I would do this is because if I create like a bleedy, like crazy liquefied version of each of these letters, and I decide I really don't like what I've done with it and I'd like to revert back to its original state, being able to turn off the Liquify filter once we apply it later on and revert back to our original letter shape will be really useful for that. So let's go ahead and start this. You could also name these. You could also come in, if I want to just call this A, B, oops, B, C, oops. You could name them A, B, C, D, and E, but maybe we should name them after the letters that they actually are. So A, D, O, B, E. This Tuesday morning feels like a Monday morning to me, so I apologize. All right, so now we have all of our letters individual, and what we're going to do is we're going to start pushing and pulling these letters around, and I am going to just click our A, I'm going to come up to Filter, and I'm going to go to Liquify under Lens Correction here. So we'll go ahead and go to Liquify, and this opens up this panel for us. Now, when you come in here, you might not have all of your layers showing. I highly recommend hitting Show Backdrop and selecting all layers so that you can continue to see the way that your all of your elements are placed on your canvas. Instead of just, if we unhide this, it'll only show just what is on the layer, and you want to keep track of how everything looks here. And then with just the forward warp tool, what we're going to do is we're going to just start dragging. I'm just using my my pen tool here, just my mouse, and just kind of start experimenting with some craziness that you could do. I might just bring this down like so, and I'm just going to bleed that and just like move that right off the edge, just like that. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and then we have this version. We'll do the same thing with all of these. So we'll come in, we'll go up to Filter and Liquify, and then we will start to just move this around and really drag this off the edge of our canvas. And I'm just clicking and pulling with my mouse. So let's go ahead and do all of these. We'll hit OK. We'll do the same thing with our O. Go into Liquify. And I am just going to push and pull. Let's go ahead and make this one. This one's kind of crazy because we have a lot of different portions of it here, which I really like, so we can make that one even crazier. I really like that look, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. And we got 2 more letters to do here, and this is kind of a fun thing. I think if you want to be crazier with it, you can be, but keep in mind we are going to alter these further, so the crazier they are, the more work you may have. I actually kind of like this where it just kind of fits weirdly into this area here by the O. I kind of like that. We'll leave that like that, I think. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. And then let's do the last thing. The last one, come in with our E, and we're gonna liquify the E off the edge of the canvas. Maybe we'll pull this more to the side instead of down, just like so. So now we have all of these letters that are kind of like wiggly, kind of bleeding off the edge of the canvas, which I think is really cool. And we're going to come in with some masking, and we are going to make these kind of line up with our letters. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to collapse all of these smart filters we've just added. And this is what I meant by using these, kind of applying the Liquify filter with onto a smart object, because now it gives me a list of all of the filters and things I've applied. So if I want to, I can come in and turn this Liquify off, and it'll bring me back to my original A, and in and out as I see fit, which I highly recommend. So now we have this Adobe that is kind of crazy, you know, and what we want to do is we want to get back a little bit of the original letter vibe that we had before. And you can do this step if you want to, or you can leave it as is, because honestly, I think it's pretty cool like this. But if you want to bring back some more of the readability and the legibility of your letter, what you can do is we can come in, let's go ahead and select all of these, holding shift, I'll select the top and bottommost layer that I want to select in a row, and I'll turn the opacity down like so, just so we can kind of see through it. And then let's unhide our Adobe copy. We can also turn this on a lower opacity just so we can see where everything overlaps. And then what we can do is come into each letter with warp, for example, and we can Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac to free transform. Actually, before we do this, we need to rasterize these if we want to. What I like to do here is make a copy. Because if you transform a smart object like this, like I just did, it turns it back to its original state so that you can transform it, and then it applies that new transformation with the original new state that you applied to it, which can be very confusing if you're working with very organic shapes like this. So I would say now is the time when you would rasterize your layers, but if you really want to be able to go back to the original state or alter that Liquify that you placed, you could also Control J and duplicate that, or Command J, and have yourself a copy and rasterize one of them to work with. For the purpose of this, I know pretty much that I am, you know, kind of on the right track, so I'm going to go ahead and just rasterize. So let's go ahead and rasterize this layer. And then I will Command or Control T and go into right click and go into warp. So once you have your free transform, you just right click and you can enter a different free transform mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start pushing and pulling these pieces until my my layer kind of lines up with the edge of my text, like so. And again, you do not have to do this this step if you don't want to. If you like how your words look with just this, you can just leave it as is, but I kind of like being able to line these up and really create this, you know, legibility at the top of all the letters. And then what I will do is I will kind of mask out any part that overlaps strangely, which I will show you. So let's go ahead. Maybe we'll only do this. Another kind of cool idea is to only do this step for some of the letters so that the word gets less and less legible as you get towards the outer edge of the word. I think that could be actually really, really cool. So maybe we'll do that. We'll just kind of warp this around like so. I think that's cool. Add that to the D. And then I think we will actually leave, let's go ahead and do this sort of to the O. And then we'll leave the B and E crazy. So let's go ahead. I've rasterized that. We'll Control T or Command T, and we will right click and warp. And I'm just going to drag this so that the edge of our O really lines up here with the edge of the original letter, like so. Let's do it like that, and we'll bring this kind of down in there. We'll bring this to the edge here, really line that up. I like it. And so we'll leave the B and E kind of crazy just to kind of show that it gets worse and worse as the Liquify kind of moves. I'm liking this a lot. Now, let's go ahead and incorporate some masking because we want this to be as legible as possible. So let's see where everything lies. So this is our layer with our A. I definitely want the A and D of Adobe to maintain this lovely form here, but some of this overlaps with these portions of the kind of liquefied letters that we've added, so we need to mask that out appropriately. I think that I will just remove the O, B, and E from here. So what I can do is I will go ahead and selecting on that Adobe copy, I will apply a mask just with our little mask button here in the corner. Let's go ahead and apply that. And then I can come in with a brush. I'll make sure that my brush mode is set to normal. I will right click and grab like a hard round pressure here, and making sure that I do not have caps locks on so I can see how large my brush is. I'll make my brush a little smaller. You can make your brush smaller or larger with the left and right bracket keys. I will come in and I'm just going to mask out the OBE from here because I like the form that we've got with the O, B, and E there. And then here with the A and D, we're going to get a little bit fancy. So I am going to mask out this portion. Because once these are on like a full opacity, this will all, anything that you can see here will be like fully colored in. And you won't be able to see that these two little layer pieces kind of overlap strangely there. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then here with the A, I think what I'm gonna do is, let's come over here and I'll Control T and add warp again. And I'm just going to move that even closer to the edge there. There we go. And I'm going to leave that like so, but I will hit B on my keyboard, make sure I am selected. Let's go ahead and make this a full opacity. I'm going to just color in. I'm just going to add a little bit of brush there. We'll bring this to full opacity as well, and I'm going to add a little brush there just to really make sure that that is colored in. We will bring everything else up to full opacity as well, and let's take a look. I kind of like it. It's a little crazy. It's a little weird and wild, but I do like it a lot. I think we might kind of take my brush. I'm just clicking to kind of fill in this area, but you can see kind of what we have done here. We have created a version of the word Adobe that is really wicked and really kind of wiggly and crazy, which I like. So what I'm going to do is I will select all of this that I've got, all of my individual letters, my main Adobe Word Smart Object, and I'm just going to select them all, right click, and convert to Smart Object. So now I have, this is, if I Control T, this is all one little piece here. And if I want to edit this separately, I can always double click this Smart Object thumbnail and it will open all of these different layers and everything in another file, which is great. And I can alter this here. So if I were to hide this A, I could hit save and then come back over here and you'll see that there are changes made, but I definitely don't want to do that because I like my main unit like this. So I'll hit save and close that. So now we've got this crazy, wicked, wacky Adobe word, and we are going to add a little bit of texture and use the Liquify filter a little bit more for this. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll grab our background. And I'm going to bring our background layer up to above our Adobe Word, and I'm going to call this now gradient texture. I'm just going to rename that because we do have a background down here. I'll call this BG for background. And that is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and right click our gradient texture here. And I am going to say create clipping mask. So we've got a clipping mask clipped to our Adobe Word, which looks pretty cool, but we can make it even cooler if we add more Liquify effects. So let's go ahead and come up to filter. We could also transform this into a smart object just in case we don't like the changes. So let's do that. Convert to smart object and then apply our Liquify filter. We'll come into Liquify. And we can see all of our layers because we have show backdrop here. And what I'm going to do with my brush, again, just on the forward warp tool, is I'm going to start swirling this around. I'm going to start making this wacky and crazy, and adding almost like, if you can imagine it being kind of like a like an oil spill. We're just going to really make that wild and crazy. Keep in mind, as we do this, that around the edges, you might accidentally liquify this, and you see how you kind of get the edge of the canvas, the edge of the layer you're liquefying kind of pulls up from the edge there. Try to keep an eye on that so that you actually liquefy everything, and it still covers the whole region that you're looking to alter, okay? Keep that in mind, because I've done that a few times and didn't understand, why is there no texture in this corner of the space that I was working with? That would be why. So we'll just liquefy this around and make it kind of wacky and crazy, which I think that actually looks pretty darn cool. And we'll go ahead and say, okay, see what it, oh, I like it. I like it. So this is cool. It's a little wild, as you can see. We've got a lot of crazy textures going on here. And I'd like to add some finishing touches just by applying a gradient map to this, because maybe we want to change our colors a little bit. So I'm going to come up to edit, or image, excuse me, adjustments and gradient map. And I'll click around here and see if I find some gradients that I like. Now, I have gradient maps already in here that I really like to use. So I could come in with some of these things that I have already used in the past that I like pretty well. And you can go ahead and kind of use whatever it is that you would like to use. You could also make your own. We've done some challenges in this set that kind of show off how to make your own gradient maps. I actually like this. This one's kind of cool too, and it matches our background. So I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and use this. You can alter these however you want, like this. You can come in and kind of change how some of these colors are positioned. You can change the colors altogether. And you can alter a gradient map just from these that are default ready in Photoshop. Like I said, I have a lot that I've created over the years. So I'm going to use one of mine, but do what you feel is best, and you can name it here and hit new and save it into your presets here if you like. If I just click that, you can see it adds it right there. And we'll hit OK. You can also try the reverse if you think the reverse might be better. That reverse actually is pretty sick, but I like the texture down here, so I'll go ahead and hit OK. And then maybe I'll add another, let's go ahead and say another layer here. Make this a clipping mask, and I can come in with my handy dandy dissolve brush, which is like my favorite thing, just a soft round brush set to dissolve. And I can come in with the color, and maybe I'll just make the top of this a little bit darker. And now we have our Adobe. Now this is pretty cool, but I'd like to use our white grunge sketchy texture to add even more texture to this. And we could also come in with our dissolve soft round brush, and maybe grab like a white and add more to this background. Like if I want to add, just kind of tap some noisy texture in here with white, that would be cool. I could also grab a more saturated dark green and add some darker color here too, if I wanted to. Maybe an even darker color, just to kind of add something into this corner up here. That could be cool. But we want to add our texture, and so our let's see, our texture here, if I can select this, our stock image is, I'm gonna write, let's go ahead and pull this up, our Adobe text real quick, and I'm gonna just type this out real quick so that everybody can see it once. This is, I believe, I've got it up over here. Actually, you know what? I'll just post. I could just post. It's 353934700. I wonder if I can just copy this and add it, like copy paste it. Yeah, here we go. Boom. Copy. And I will also post this in the Discord. So if you'd like to use the same one that I'm using, this is the number. You could screenshot that as you watch, or check out the Discord and get the link. So that is our image. and you can just kind of drop it in here, and I would suggest throwing it on a screen overlay. So if we do something like this, we've got screen. Where is screen? Screen looks pretty darn cool, and I like it. I've also done one already so that I can Martha Stewart you a little bit, and you guys can check out what I've created. So this is my Creativity for All Adobe poster, and we are out of time, so I do have to take off. But I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope you experiment a lot and do some really cool designs with our Liquify tools and adding textures and things. I had a blast creating this for you, and I hope to see what you folks do in the Discord after the challenge. Stay tuned because we have more challenges coming up after this, and I will see you folks tomorrow morning for challenge number 7. Adios, everybody.